Hey! In this video, I will show you how to use auto layout in the Tilda Zero Block editor. This feature speeds up the design process by making the layout you're creating responsive to content or size changes. Using auto layout, you can change any content and the layout will adjust accordingly. Quickly adapt the layout so it's responsive to different screen resolutions. Easily create menus, headers, footers, and work with lists. Effortlessly work on the design of different elements like cards, and much more. Why is working with auto layout so convenient? In short, you can specify the direction and spacing for elements inside an object group, and the elements will align based on the rules you've specified. Adjusting the group size or removing content won't affect the rules. It means that your layout becomes more responsive to changes. Essentially, auto layout in Zero Block is very similar to CSS Flexbox. Let's explore some examples of how you can work with auto layout and where you can apply it when building a website. Let me open the Zero Block editor. Suppose I want to create breadcrumbs for my website to improve navigation between sections and place them at the top of each page. However, the pre-designed block with breadcrumbs doesn't quite suit me, so I've decided to create a custom one in Zero Block. The breadcrumb navigation will include several elements. I've already added them to the artboard. First, I'll select all the elements, group them, and choose the Object option under the Group setting, making it an object group. Then, in the Auto Layout section, I'll set Auto under Flex. All done! With Auto Layout enabled for the object group, all elements are now arranged horizontally in a row. By adjusting the direction setting, I can change how elements align, vertically or horizontally. Here, I can also arrange them in reverse order. I want to decrease the spacing between the elements, so I'll adjust the gap setting. Notice how, when I hover over it, Tilda highlights the exact spacing I'll be modifying. I'll set it to 4 pixels. Now, I'm not quite happy with how navigation arrows are aligned to the top. Let's change that. Under the Align Elements setting, I'll choose Center. Now all the elements are aligned to the group's center. Much better. Next, I'll set the background color. Then, add top and bottom paddings of 10 pixels and side paddings of 13 pixels. Finally, in the border section, I'll adjust the radius to 6 pixels so it's slightly rounded. Under the tag setting, I'll assign the HTML tag nav to the group. This is crucial for your website's SEO as it helps web crawlers better understand the structure of the page, resulting in improved indexing. It also makes your website more accessible and user-friendly for people with disabilities. To learn more about search engine optimization and digital accessibility on Tilda, check out the links in the video description. Now, I want to add a new section to the website. I'll select the arrow and the text elements, duplicate them inside the group, and edit the text. The layout has adjusted automatically. Here's how the final version of the breadcrumbs navigation looks on my website. Now, all that's left to do is add links for each item. To do that, click on a text element and proceed to the link section. Great! Let's move on and explore other auto layout settings in the next example. I have a gallery with 10 photos. First, I'll select all the images and group them. Then, I'll set it as an object group. When I try to decrease the container's width, I notice that the group doesn't adjust correctly. The images are resized disproportionately. If I scale down the container while holding the Shift key, it fixes the distortion problem but still doesn't quite work as I want it to. I want the photos to adjust inside the container according to its size. That's where Auto Layout comes in handy. I'll go to the Auto Layout section and select Auto under the Flex setting. Notice that since my images are arranged in multiple rows, the wrap direction is set here by default. With wrap, elements align in a row according to the container's width. If an element is too wide to fit, it will be moved to the next row. There is also a setting that reverses the order of elements. However, please note that with the wrap direction enabled, it will reverse the order of the rows, not the individual elements, like this. Next, I can adjust the gap setting, which sets the spacing between the elements. If the wrap direction has been selected in the previous step, you can adjust the gap for side, bottom, and top spacing of the elements. To do that, use the Differ button. Here, you can customize the gap sizes for both X and Y axes. Next, I'll move on to the Justify Content setting, which aligns the elements horizontally inside the container. You can align them to the left side of the container, center them, or align them to the right side. No matter what you choose here, the spacing between elements set in the gap setting will remain unchanged. Next, we have the settings for the smart horizontal alignment of the elements. The space between setting ensures that the outermost elements fit closely to the container, while the rest of the elements are distributed inside with an equal distance between them. The next setting is space around. When enabled, the white space is evenly distributed between the elements, with the distance from the container to the outermost elements being half the spacing between equally distributed elements. The space evenly setting distributes white space between the elements evenly, with the distance from the container to the outermost elements being equal to the spacing between the other elements. Notice how the elements fit closely to the container vertically, both at the bottom and at the top, meaning that there is no white space between them and the container on the y-axis. That's because the hug option is enabled in the Group Settings section. If I manually adjust the container's height, the setting automatically switches from hug to fixed, indicating that a custom height is set. To demonstrate how the rest of the settings work, I need enough white space underneath the images. The Align Content setting arranges elements vertically within the container. The default setting here is Top, meaning the elements are aligned to the top of the container. I also have the options to center or bottom align the elements. The space between setting makes the outermost rows fit closely to the top and bottom of the container, while the rows in between are arranged with equal spacing between them. If I choose space around, the spacing between rows will be equal, and the gap from the outermost rows to the container will be half of that distance. I noticed that the setting didn't work. The spacing from the top and bottom rows to the container is not half the distance between rows. This happened because earlier I set the gap setting to 19 pixels. I'll remove this value. All done. The last setting here, called Space Evenly, ensures that both the spacing between the rows and the distance from the container to the outermost elements are equal. As you can see, when I decrease the container's height, the spacing between the elements in the group adjusts according to the rules I've set, adapting to the changes in the container's size. You can delete elements, add new ones, and also move them around within the group using the mouse, the order setting, or via the Layers panel. With Auto Layout, adapting layouts to different screen resolutions is faster. Apply the provided instructions to work with tag clouds, navigation menus, footers, lists, and other design elements. No matter what you create, you'll be able to make the layout responsive on all devices quickly and efficiently. Now, let's talk about the difference between the Align Elements and Align Content settings. The Align Elements setting aligns elements vertically within a row. For example, if I have logos of different heights, I can align them to the top or bottom of the row, or center them. The Align Content setting aligns the elements vertically relative to the container. If I choose the Align Content Top option, the elements will fit closely to the top of the container, while maintaining the center alignment within the row that I set earlier. The Align Content Center and Align Content Bottom options work similarly. The Align Content setting becomes available under two conditions. Firstly, you need to set the wrap direction, which indicates the presence of multiple rows of content with adjustable vertical spacing between them. Secondly, you need to make sure that there is some white space between the elements grouped inside the container, and in the Group Settings section, the Fixed option is set for vertical alignment. If this condition is met, there will be enough space for the elements to be vertically aligned relative to the container. Let's put what we just learned into practice and create a card element using Auto Layout in Zero Block. As you can see, there's already one card prepared for the future page, so let's create a new one with a matching layout from scratch. I have two elements here, and I'll group them. Then I'll create an object group and enable Auto Layout. I'll rearrange the elements to match the layout of the card on the left. I'll adjust the height of the container to 208 pixels. Next, I'll go to the Justify Content setting and select Space Between so that the two elements fit closely to the top and bottom of the container. To recreate the layout of the first card, I need to add some spacing between the elements and the container. To do that, I go to the padding setting and set it to 20 pixels. To modify custom padding for all 4 dimensions, click the Differ button. Now, the only thing missing is a background image. I'll go to the Background section and upload one I prepared beforehand. Then, I'll go to the Border section and set the radius to 6 pixels for slightly rounded corners. You can see that the width of the card is smaller than the one on the left, so I'll increase the width in the group settings. The second card is finished. Now, All that's left is to align the position of the cards on the artboard and add links. You can find a full guide on working with auto layout in Zero Block in the Tilda Help Center. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching and good luck with creating wonderful websites. Bye.